Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting stuck into the 2025 Belgian Grand Prix. It was quite something.
Yeah, absolutely. We've looked at a lot of analysis, especially digging into the SPAF1 podcast bits to kind of give you the fast track on what actually happened at Spa.
Exactly. Our mission here is to break down all the drama, the key drives, the big strategic calls, basically everything that made the race what it was.
And we're talking about Spa-Francorchamps here. Motorsport's ultimate test, really. The weather, the track itself. It just pushes everyone, drivers and teams, right to the edge.
It always does. It's legendary for that. So yeah, we'll be pinpointing the drivers who really stood out, the moments that made us gasp, maybe, and those little details that decided things.
And we definitely need to talk about that big debate that split opinions, the start delay.
Oh, for sure. We'll get to that. But let's start with the performance of the weekend, I think. You got to say Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, absolutely. The class act. Just a really composed performance all weekend.
That first lap. Wow. Getting past his teammate Lando Norris like that felt like a statement, didn't it?
It really did. And, it secured McLaren's first win in Belgium since way back in 2012.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
A huge deal for them.
And it wasn't just the overtake. He used the slipstream perfectly into Lecombe, which is like classic Spa tactics, but executed brilliantly.
Right. You have to nail that timing.
Exactly. And then managing the pace in those tricky changing conditions. That was masterful. It wasn't just about this one win either. It helped him stretch his lead in the championship. Big psychological boost.
Okay, so Piastri was composed, but Lando Norris, he definitely had the raw speed, right? Pole position, led the early laps behind the safety car. Looked like it might be his day.
Oh, the pace was definitely there. Blistering, you could say. McLaren locked out the front row, which was impressive in itself.
But then the errors crept in.
Yeah, that's the thing. That wide moment at Puhan, super fast corner, easy to get wrong, and then locking up into La Source later on, lap 43, I think it was. Those mistakes just cost him too much time. Precious seconds just slipped away.
And his strategy, going onto the hards early, behind the safety car, a bit of a gamble.
It was a gamble, yeah. Maybe hoping the track would drive faster, get track position, but ultimately it didn't pay off enough to cover those mistakes. P2 in the end.
Shows that fine line, doesn't it? Speed versus precision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially at a track like Spa.
So if Norris's race was about what might have been, Charles Leclerc's was maybe about maximizing the situation, particularly in the wet.
Definitely. He was superb when it was slick, holding off Max Verstappen. I mean, keeping Max behind through Lecombes and Eau Rouge in those conditions, that takes some serious skill and nerve.
Yeah, Max isn't exactly easy to keep behind you.
Not at all. And Ferrari seemed to nail the strategy calls with him, too. That early switch to slicks, that was key to securing P3.
Must have felt good for them, especially with their upgrades. A real boost.
Huge morale boost, yeah. Shows the package is working, even in tricky conditions.
Okay, let's talk about Max Verstappen then. Won the sprint, looks strong, but the main race seemed like a different story. A lot of frustration there.
Yeah, you could feel the frustration. The sprint was classic Max, splitting the McLarens. But the Grand Prix, it sounds like the car setup just wasn't right for the drying track.
That wet weather rear wing setting.
Exactly. Great for full wet, but as it dried, it just created too much drag. Killed his straight line speed. You saw him stuck behind Leclerc early on. Couldn't make a move. Finishing P4 must have been, well, disappointing for him.
And he wasn't quiet about the race start delay, was he?
No, not at all. Very vocal. Called it too cautious. Basically said it took away the challenge of a proper wet race, which, often plays to his strengths. We'll definitely circle back to that whole debate.
Right. So what about Mercedes? Looked like a bit of a salvage job for them after qualifying didn't quite go to plan.
Yeah, damage limitation seemed to be the name of the game. George Russell, I'd say, had a pretty solid, if maybe unspectacular weekend.
Got past Albon early, right?
He did. And then just kept a clean, consistent pace, brought it home in P5. Decent points for the team, which they needed after struggling a bit earlier.
And Lewis Hamilton started from the pit lane after that Q1 exit. That looked like it could be a really long, painful Sunday.
It did. But then, vintage Hamilton, really. Just an incredible recovery draft.
Some of those passes in the early laps on slicks were pretty audacious.
Absolutely. Classic Lewis. Timing the tire changes well, fighting through the field, climbing all the way back to P7 from a pit lane start. That's seriously impressive stuff.
He apologized on the radio for qualifying, too.
Yeah, but that drive showed his fighting spirit is still absolutely there. Never gives up. A masterclass in making the best of a bad situation.
So beyond those top teams, the midfield, as always, had its own battles, its own stories unfolding.
Always does. It's relentless back there. You look at Alexander Albon, fantastic drive to P6 in the Williams.
Holding off Hamilton for a while, too.
Exactly. Especially after having a power unit issue in the sprint. Really strong performance from him and the team.
Sauber seemed like a mixed bag, though.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Nico Hülkenberg played the strategy well initially. That first stop gained him places up to P9, but then the second stop just dropped him back out of the points. Unlucky, maybe.
And his teammate Bortoleto.
Gabriel Bortoleto, yeah. Showed some good pace in Q2, held on for P9 in the race, kept Tadjar behind him. Maybe didn't quite have the ultimate pace to challenge Lawson ahead, but still, points are points.
What about Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls? He got into Q3.
He did, and scored a point in the sprint, which was good, but then seemed to have some kind of straight-line speed issue in the Grand Prix itself, which hampered him. Just shows how quickly things can change.
And Fernando Alonso. Aston Martin seemed to struggle a bit overall, didn't they? He showed some pace early in the wet.
Yeah, that initial wet running looked promising, like maybe the conditions suited the car, but then qualifying was a real struggle all weekend long. Just highlights how tricky it is to get the setup right for Spa, especially when the weather's all over the place, even for someone with his experience.
Yeah, definitely. So let's circle back to that delay, the 80-minute postponement. That delay debate, as we're calling it, caused quite a stir.
It really did. You had George Russell, for example, strongly defending it, saying it was absolutely necessary for safety, pointing to Eau Rouge in particular.
Which is fair enough. It's incredibly dangerous in the wet.
Totally. Standing water there. At those speeds, the risk is huge. So from his perspective, safety has to come first, no question.
But then you had Max Verstappen, as we mentioned, with the complete opposite view.
Right, calling it too cautious, feeling like it robbed everyone of a proper wet weather spectacle. You know, those challenging conditions are where drivers like him often make the biggest difference. He felt the conditions weren't that bad when they finally started.
So safety won out in the end, but you can understand why some, maybe the purists, felt they missed out on that classic, unpredictable, fully wet Spa race.
Exactly. It's that ongoing tension in F1, isn't it? Balancing the absolute need for safety with the desire for raw, exciting racing drama. Where do you draw the line? That's tough.
It really is. Okay, so wrapping this up, this deep dive into the 2025 Belgian Grand Prix, it really just hammered home why Spa is such a special, demanding track.
Absolutely. The weather, the strategy calls, the sheer driver skill needed. It all played a massive part in how things unfolded.
We saw Oscar Piastri's brilliant, composed victory.
Yeah, and Lando Norris learning about those tiny margins between winning and P2, plus that whole dynamic field behind them with emerging talents and experienced hands all fighting for position.
It was classic Spa, really. Delivered the drama, whether you enjoyed the tire strategy chess match or were hoping for more wet weather chaos. It gave us a lot to think about.
For sure. And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What is it about a race weekend that you find the most compelling? Is it the strategic battles, the calculated risks? Or is it that raw, unpredictable side when the elements just take over? Spa gave us a bit of both this time.